I am guided by imagination, open to my creation, creating wins and celebrations. Don't be overwhelmed by information, more important than education. Be inspired by your exploration, on the path to your destination, leading to innovation. Yes, you are guided by imagination. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Guided by Imagination podcast. I'm your hostess, Jenny Edwards, and I am so happy today because I have an awesome guest today, Jeff Munn. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here, Jenny. This is going to be amazing.
Yay! Yes, it will. We'll pre-frame it. Well, Jeff, I'm excited to have you here because for those of you that don't know Jeff, he is an executive coach and he works with founders who are growing to 8 to 9 figures and doing that without exhausting themselves in the process. What a concept, right?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine for some of them, believe me.
Yeah, I bet. And people that are growing and scaling, it's such a whole different way of living, especially to that degree, that level. And I love that your business is called Creating Extraordinary Futures, which I think goes so well with imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. Creation and imagination are, if they're not identical twins, they're at least siblings, right?
Oh yeah, I like that metaphor. Well played. So I want to ask you then, what has made a difference with you using imagination in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's every day I feel like we are using our imaginations to create. And, what I'll hear from a lot of people is, oh, I'm not creative. I don't have the imagination that you do. And yet it requires imagination to make up the fact that you don't have imagination, right? I mean, it's invisible and it's so all-encompassing. It's so around us all the time that we miss it. And so to think that imagination only means one particular thing as opposed to, no, I'm imagining my whole life 24/7. And when I can catch that, I can do it more consciously, and that can be really powerful.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I think having that clarity and to be able to tap into that, because people probably don't consider themselves. I've noticed this too, like you mentioned, people saying, oh, I'm not creative, I have an artistic background. I have my Bachelor of Fine Art degree, and people say like, oh, I'm not an artist. Oh, I can't do art. It's like, wow, just ignite that. Just look at small ways that you could tap into that, and every day, and you see a whole new perspective, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
And what about in your life and for your family? Has that made a difference to use imagination?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly use it personally. I encourage my clients to use it to dream, to dream bigger, to think bigger, because I do think it's really powerful. But I'll share an example that's really fresh for me and really personal. And it's with respect to my 14-year-old son, Lucas. And Lucas, who knows where kids get their ideas, but they're just so much more willing to go for it. And there's so much, there's less editing, right? There's less hesitation. And Lucas came to me in November of last year and seemingly out of the blue, although I found out he'd been thinking about it for a while, he just said, Dad, I want to be an exchange student next year, and I want to go to Japan. And it was like, what? And I was simultaneously really excited for him and like heartbroken by the thought of him being away for a year. And, he shared it, with his mom, my wife, Jen, and she had a similar reaction. And yet as soon as he knew he had that thing that he had created in his imagination, he knew, he had figured out it existed in the world. He started taking all of this action around it. He talked to his guidance counselor at school. He filled out a 10-page online application.
Wow.
He figured out what the interview process was. So he had to go through a round of interviews in December. He had to go through a round of interviews. A couple weeks ago, we went down to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is about an hour and a half from where we are, and spent the weekend talking with other exchange students, talking with people from other countries who were here on exchange, going through another round of interviews. And we found out last Friday, so just a few days ago, that he got it. He's going to Japan next year. And it wouldn't have started without this thing like popping into his imagination and then him taking action over and over and over again until that thing became a reality.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So proud of him.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, I'm still heartbroken by it, but yeah, I mean, it is really exciting. It's going to be totally life-changing for him.
Yeah, I would be too. And my daughters are still young, but I can only imagine how that would feel too, because you have this like, oh, I really want to, nurture them and nurture their visions of what's possible and opportunities. And then it's like, what? I selfishly want to, want them to be near me. So you have to let them grow
I want
their
to be
wings.
there to help you with that. Yeah, can I live in your room with you? No, that's
I
not the way
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love how just looking at what you mentioned about children, where these ideas come from. And I'm sure he was, like you said, inspired by the way that you've raised him to cultivate that imagination and really see the opportunities and see the possibilities, because it all just starts in our thoughts. And when we can, have that time to get clarity and then, like what he did, get into inspired action, like actually do all the things. Because I think that's what stops a lot of people. It's like, 10 pages form, like, that's a lot. Or you have to go interview, people get caught up in all of that and it becomes too much.
Oh yeah, we will stop ourselves every step of the way. So there's like the initial thought, and you could just dismiss it. Like, oh, that's a pipe dream. That'll never happen. Or, you could start taking some action and then run into, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to interview with 10 people. I don't think I can do that. I mean, he was in a room for the final interview, he was in a room with 10 people taking questions. And he
Wow.
could have gotten the acceptance and said, I've realized what this is really going to mean, and I don't think I actually want it. I'm out. And I've seen adults like opt out every step of the way, So it's like, yes, there's this thing that's created it's created in your imagination. It emerges. It comes through you. Who knows where these things come from, right? But they're ours. And like, I feel like we have this duty to like bring forth what is ours to bring forth. And we're kind of saying no to the universe or God or whatever you believe when we don't do those things. And I think that's really a tragedy.
Yeah, it's so important to follow your heart in life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's 14, so that is going to really shape who he becomes as a leader, as someone that really takes initiative and is determined and courageous. That really shapes who you're being.
And has done hard things and has struggled and come through those, because it's not going to be a completely smooth ride next year, learning a new language in a new country where, it's just going to be so 100% different from what he goes through from day to day today.
Yeah. Total expansion of the comfort zone.
100%.
Yeah, I believe that. That's so exciting. Well, that's a good perspective, I think, especially for our listeners, to maybe a call to action, a little challenge for people listening to look at what are some big things that you want to do. Maybe it's a dream that you've had that you didn't follow through with years ago, or you wanted to learn how to play the guitar, or you wanted to go to a foreign country like Lucas.
Yeah.
What's something big that you wanted to achieve, or maybe even like, I know you work with obviously founders. If people that are listening haven't started their business, or they have had a business that hasn't grown to the level that they want to, looking at some of those big dreams too, that could really help you thrive. And taking note of that, during the course of the next week, so you can start moving forward with that clarity to get into that inspired action to the next steps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about my own business. I mean, I actively decided not to go out on my own as a coach for several years. It actually took me getting laid off from my last corporate job in 2016 before I was like, oh yeah, I've been saying that I want to do this thing for years and I haven't been doing it. What's up with that? And now that my circumstances have changed, am I going to do it? And it took that to get me into action. So sometimes there's this catalyst that shows up in your life. It's almost a reminder, little reminder from the universe, like, hey, you've been saying you wanted such and such. You going to do it?
Yeah. Remember me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. And the life circumstances, because I had a similar situation in my life that I got laid off from my corporate job. And it was really such a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And it caused me to take a leap of faith to move to the West Coast and start a whole new chapter of my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we moved across the country as well. We moved from Washington, D.C. to, this small town in Colorado, Carbondale. And, it took me about 2 days before I figured out, oh, this is actually the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I was still scared to death. I mean, both of those things were true, right? I still had to oh my gosh, I'm kind of naked now, right? I don't have the protection of this
safety
job and this paycheck and this predictable routine and this, these rules that I knew how to follow. No, I had to use my imagination to make up. Well, what am I going to do and who am I going to be now?
Yeah, the reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so good. And like anything related to personal development and on our personal journeys, there's so much growth when you are expanding your comfort zone, when you're getting out of that safety, and you can really embrace change. That really allows you to get connected to what's really important to you and what do you really want and what's your purpose. So I want to acknowledge you, Jeff, for taking that step and really, creating your extraordinary future.
Oh, thanks.
And now that you guide people, and you guide people to tap into that. And that's so, so powerful and needed in this world. So
can I just add one? Well, I want to add one thought to that just popped up. I'm throwing a little bit of a curveball at you. But,
we're in the flow. We're going with the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm really fascinated. I work with a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s, so they're kind of at midlife. They've had some level of success, and one of the questions they have is well, I thought this success would bring me satisfaction, would bring me happiness or whatever. And then when it doesn't, like, what am I doing? And so I was reading a book, I think the guy's name is James Hollis, but it was about midlife and about finally growing up and what does that look like. And he said something that really resonated with me. Like when you're on this journey through life, he said, if you're growing, you're uncomfortable and you have anxiety and, you don't know how things are going to work out. But if you're not stretching, then you kind of get into this comfort, and that comfort can turn into malaise, and that malaise can turn into depression, and you don't even really know, you don't even recognize it as it's happening, and it's like we think that we can just be happy all the time, but actually the choice is, it's like growth, which means discomfort, or comfort, which means depression. And it's like, which one are you going to choose?
Ooh.
And
good.
I think, as you point toward, growth and stretching and discomfort and imagination and creativity, that people hear words like imagination and creativity and think that sounds fun. And it's actually incredibly uncomfortable. And that's actually exactly how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks so much for sharing that tidbit. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm glad I thought of it because it's really been, it's had an impact on me as I've been thinking about it in my own life. Like, so I'm actually moving toward discomfort. Mm-hmm. And that's how we grow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. And I want to ask you, how can the listeners connect with you, Jeff?
I'm on Facebook. But I think I do more things on LinkedIn than anything else. Because I am working with a lot of people in the corporate world. So certainly reaching out on LinkedIn and connecting and direct messaging is probably the easiest way to find me.
Perfect. And also, I didn't mention earlier when I introduced you, but you are one of my clients.
Yeah.
And I've been so excited to really be able to edit your videos and share your message, because that's totally in alignment with my mission and my purpose in the world, to help entrepreneurs and business owners share their message and make a more powerful, confident delivery of sharing that message to make an impact in the world, using my skills as a videographer and photographer and storyteller. And I got to help you share your story here today. So that's super cool.
Exactly.
And another thing that I wanted to share with the listeners is, if you are a founder, I got the opportunity to edit Jeff's video that you should totally watch. It's called 3 Fundamental Shifts Founders Must Make to Scale and Sell Their Businesses. And I'll put the link to that in the show notes so people can access that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because in any case, all of these, as you are helping people create their extraordinary future, as any of us, no matter where we are on that pathway, even if we're not yet thinking 8 to 9 figures, that could be your future. That anything is possible. Yeah. And we just have to get that clarity about how we're moving forward and actually take that inspired action. So I invite all of you listeners to take that step, really take note of what is important to you that you haven't done yet, that could make that powerful impact in your life. And definitely connect with Jeff and learn some of his amazing insights that can highly transform how you see that perspective for your own business too. So thank you so much, Jeff, for being here. I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. You said I'm a client. I am a very happy, thrilled client. I just can't emphasize that enough, how fun it is to work with you.
Aw, thank you so much for those kind words. Yes, I have so much fun too. It's awesome. It's super inspiring too. It's just really fulfilling and like, And so for our listeners, I invite you to keep tuning in, subscribe to this podcast, and learn more powerful insights and stories from like-minded people that have integrated imagination into their practice, into their business, into their life, so that they can really achieve more growth, more stretching, more solutions, more visions, more love and happiness. Have an amazing day, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to activate your imagination and creativity and have more fun in front of the camera with your photos and videos to market your business online or share your message to make a difference in the world, I'd love to offer you a complimentary 30-minute inspiration session, a Zoom room that we can set up and chat about ideas and inspiration to make your day a celebration with Guided by Imagination. Click the link in the show notes.